Hey there. All right. So today we are going to talk about buy downs. What does it mean to do a buy down? And specifically, we're going to talk about actually a 2-1 buy down. So, what a 2-1 buy down is, who pays for it, how it works, why it benefits the buyer. We're going to cover all of that. So, essentially, what a 2-1 buy down is it allows for you as the buyer to get a discounted interest rate for the first 2 years. So we're going to go through an example so that we can really drive this concept home and make sure it's clear. But essentially what it does is lets you have a discounted interest rate for the first 2 years at the expense of the seller. So what happens is at closing, the seller funds the entire amount of money that's needed for that 2-1 buy down, and it's put into a buy down account at closing, which then helps subsidize and make the payments for the first 2 years. So one of the questions I get a lot of the times is this an adjustable rate mortgage? And the answer is no. There is actually nothing adjustable about the rate itself. It is a fixed rate, 30-year mortgage. And a little unknown fact is that the payment actually on the mortgage is the same the entire time too, as far as what's being paid towards the mortgage. The difference is for the first 2 years, who is making that payment is mostly the buyer, but then there's a part of that payment that's made by that buy down subsidy account. So let's go more in detail. Let's just dive in. So I have a tool here that is going to help us understand this concept. So a 2-1 buy down, you'll see this explanation up here. With a 2-1 buy down, your mortgage interest rate will be discounted by 2% during the first full year, so the first 12 months, and then it's discounted by 1% the next 12 months. So for the next year, that's where the 2-1 buy down comes from. It's discounted by 2% the first year and 1% the second year. That's where that comes from. So it says the seller or builder typically pays the cost. So a builder is a seller. So it is paid for by the seller. It has to be paid for by the seller. It's not something that you as a buyer can pay for on your own. So it is a very special loan program. It's a special feature. A lot of people don't understand it, but it really can help save you some money. So let's go through how that works. So we are in Texas. So let's use an example of a $350,000 purchase price. We're going to use an example of 5% down, but you can drag that up and down as much as you would like to kind of play with the numbers or make it specific to your situation. It is going to then calculate your loan amount based on your down payment. And the closing cost really doesn't matter a whole lot right here. You're welcome to play around with that if you'd like to add closing costs. But in this specific case, to understand the buy down concept, the closing cost specifically is not super relevant. But anyways, we'll drag the interest rate to whatever your interest rate is currently, depending on where the market is. We're going to leave it at 6.5%. That's a pretty good number that rounds just about everybody at this point. Some people are lower, some people are higher depending on the situation, but 6.5 is a good just example. So is it 30-year mortgage? Don't change that number because most people are only doing 30 years. And then that's going to give us our principal and interest payment only. So it has this little information here, but this is just the loan payment, not the taxes, insurance, PMI. This is just the P&I. So 2102 is what the payment is without factoring into any of those other parts of the payment, because that's the only thing that matters when we're talking about the 2-1 buy down and how that works. So now it's going to calculate for us the buy down information. So it's going to actually break out how that works. So remember, our interest rate is 6.5%, but year one, as a buyer, your rate is 4.5% is what your payment's based off of. So your payment is $1,685, meaning your payment is $417 lower by being able to do the 2-1 buy down than if you weren't able to do the 2-1 buy down at the current rate and payment. Now, the payment that's made on the mortgage every single month, like I said, is actually $2,102. So you as the buyer pay $1,685 and the seller, aka the buy down account, pays the $417. So you add these two up together and that's how we get that $2,102. So for the first year, the buy down account is going to pay $5,004 worth of money towards the payments, which is amazing. That's what helps give us that savings. Now, year two, the payment is going to be based off of the 5.5% rate. So the buyer payment will be $1,888. The buy down account pays $214. And so the total amount year two that the buy down account would pay is $2568. So in total, $7572 is what will be saved in payments over the first 2 years from the buyer's perspective. And that's also the number that we would have to negotiate from the seller. The seller has to be willing to pay this number in order for the buy down account, the buy down process to work. So it's really, really cool that it's a feature that isn't used a ton. And another question I get is, well, what if I want to refinance after 6 months? What happens to the rest of the buy down account? It's a great question. So I'll actually go through an example, or I'll kind of use the same example. So let's say that we've had 6 months of payment. So we've used 417 times 6. We've used about 2,500 of our buy down account. So we have 7572 here. So if we do that quick math, we have over a little more than $5,000 left in our buy down account at that time. What happens to this money, whatever hasn't been used of those buy down account proceeds, it actually goes towards the payoff if the loan is paid off at that time, which would happen with a refinance. So let's say at that point you owe, you started your mortgage at 332. So let's say that at that point you owe 330. I don't have the amortization schedule right in front of me, but let's just say you owe 330. Then when the loan's paid off, you would actually owe 325. So you'd subtract whatever the current buy down balance is from that, whatever the loan balance is, whatever the payoff is at that point, and that's what you would owe. So what's really cool about that is that enables you to make it even easier to refinance, because that will allow for you to roll in closing costs and get that set up, and you may not even have a higher or much higher loan amount than when you started your mortgage. So it's really cool. So there's some other information here. You can go through and look at, what if I paid extra? What if I did some extra things? There's some different things you can do there. But really what we want to just make sure you understand is that the payment is actually fixed. The interest rate is fixed. This is what is made on the mortgage every single month. It's just that it's split between what you as the buyer pays and what the seller pays. So the couple things to understand: if you have an FHA loan, a VA loan, or a USDA, so a government insured loan, the calculations are going to be very, very close, but they're not going to be 100% exact. And the reason is because your loan amount, if you will remember, if we've had our consultation, your loan amount includes a funding fee, unless you have some sort of exemption, like with VA, if you have any service-connected disability. But with FHA, there's a funding fee or guarantee fee. USDA has one as well, and VA does if there's no service-connected disability. So those get added to the loan amount. So the calculations for the buy down are based on loan amount and interest rate. So the buy down account will be just slightly different, because the loan amounts will be slightly different than what you're calculating here, but it will get you very close, and still at least it does enable you to be able to get the concept. So if you have any questions, want to learn more, please don't hesitate to reach out. We love this feature, and we'd love to help see if we can help get that negotiated for you. So we'll talk to you soon. Bye.